Aloha there. Darcy Frankel coming to you from home today. I'm in my home office, my woman cave. All right, so today I'm talking about clean anger versus toxic anger. Getting mad is natural. It's a natural bodily expression, just like happiness, joy, sadness comes up, comes out, it's released. It's what we do with it that counts. It's a really interesting topic, one that I have spent years thinking about, learning about, practicing, honing. So let me ask you a question. How many times have you been mad in the last year? Do you know? Do you get angry? What do you do when you get angry? You can go ahead and write that in the comments if you want. Sometimes people explode. Sometimes people implode. There's a litany of things that people do when they get angry. And so today I want to talk about that and kind of meander around the topic a little bit and talk about the difference between clean anger and toxic anger. And I don't mean to make anybody wrong. It's just sometimes when we haven't learned how to be clean with our emotions, we end up projecting and blaming and making other people wrong and doing a lot of other things that we might not do if we had caretakers who modeled behavior of clean anger. I actually had a really great experience today. I was talking to an old dear friend, and he was telling me about how I got angry at him. And I'll tell you about that experience in a minute and what he shared with me and what he learned and what he teaches. He's a major influencer, and he teaches people about how I got angry at him. But before we go into that, I wanted to talk a little bit about the feeling anger. So what happens, the kind of the physiology of it, because it is quite physical. What happens when you laugh? You see something and you kind of get a little tickle. You're like, and it comes up and it goes out, right? Similar to a sneeze or a burp. You feel something, it comes up and it comes out. In the same way, we see something, we hear something, we think something, we get ourselves to feeling angry about it. Potentially. Or we could do it a different way, or we could set it up to be clean anger. So those of you who are here with me on Facebook, go ahead and say hi. Let me know, how many times have you been angry over the last year or so? There's about anything, we're confined, a lot of us. We've been on lockdown. Are you angry about that? The physiology of anger is that you feel something, it kind of rises up, and then something happens. Something, you may want to express that anger. You may want to do something or fight. It may be in response to a protective type of situation here. I don't know what it is for you, but sometimes I feel sad or disappointed, and then I get angry on top of that. What's that flavor like for you? Do you tend to implode? Do you explode? Let me know. Let me know. How do you do anger? It's kind of vulnerable, isn't it, to talk about how we do feelings. Now, how do we learn to do these feelings? Do we learn it in a book? Nope. Our caretakers model this for us. We see how to do and be anger from our caretakers, right? We learn how to do that. So how did they do anger? Did they explode? Did they implode? Did they communicate? Did they fight? Some people are just naturally scrappy, and then they just, they let you know, and then they get over it and it's done. It's really interesting to me. By the way, I am posting live on Facebook as well as YouTube Live. So aloha there, everybody on those 3 platforms. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Darcy Frankel. I practice Ayurvedic medicine. I'm a cleansing and rejuvenation specialist, and I own the Hanalei Day Spa here on Kauai. I'm at home now. It's 8:45, and I felt like I really wanted to talk about clean anger versus toxic anger today. The day's events brought up these great experiences of, oh, this is clean anger and that's toxic. Let me define both of these. So there's clean and toxic anger, and I'll tell you the story about how my influencer friend teaches about how I got mad at him. So this is a great example of clean anger. Getting mad is natural. It's a natural bodily expression, just like I mentioned, just like happiness, joy, sadness comes up, comes out, it's released. It's what we do with it that counts. So I had some feelings come up through an interaction with this friend, and I asked him, I said, could we talk? I have something I want to share with you. I was really responsible for my feelings. I said, would you be willing to listen to me? Do you have time? Do you have bandwidth? Do you have, so I basically set it up, and I said to him, and I totally forgot about this, by the way. I said to him, let's set a time where you have no distractions so that you could just focus and we could have a call. It doesn't have to be a long, big thing at all. And so he did that, and he called me up, and I checked in. I said, do you have any distractions? And he said, no. And I said, so listen, I'm going to tell you something that I'm mad about. So I'm giving an example of clean anger. So this video, for those of you who just tuned in, talking about clean anger versus toxic anger. So I set it up really, really well. And I was proud and surprised about my this person's experience of me as he recounted it today. So we get on the call, and I say, okay, so you have some time, you have some bandwidth? And he says, absolutely. And I said, listen, I'm going to tell you what I'm mad at you about. And I could, probably hear his voice get tense, and he goes, okay. He's very emotionally brave. There are several ingredients in this dialogue that we had called clean anger. One was, I set it up. I didn't ambush the guy. I was like, hey, I have something. It's a little uncomfortable. Can you post in with me when you have some bandwidth to hear me out? So he was like, sure. What a good friend. And then we got on the phone. I said, do you have bandwidth? Will you listen to me? And he said, yeah. And I said, great, because I'm mad. I'm mad at you about blah, blah, blah. When you said blah, 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 I felt angry. And here's why. And then I stopped. I probably took a breath, and I said, can you tell me what you heard me say? Then he said, yeah, you said, when you said this, I felt angry, and here's why. Boom. Let's put it behind us and move forward. That's an example of clean anger. There's lots of other great videos here. I even provide some deep dive webinars on a lot of different things. Some of my most popular videos are my water tips and how to hydrate, my best water tips and tips for getting over a cold and flu. Lots of great videos on here. If you'd like this and you've found value, go ahead and ring the bell and subscribe, comment. That helps. Now, let me give you an example of toxic anger. This just happened to me not 10 minutes ago. So I made a big mistake today. I accidentally forgot an appointment. I don't think I've ever in 17 years of business just forgotten an appointment. It was tough. It was embarrassing. Once I realized I forgot this appointment, I went into the conversation ready to practice the 5 languages of apology. Now, if you've never heard of the 5 languages of apology, you should, because it's not if you're going to mess up, it's when you mess up and what do you do after. We're inevitably going to step on someone's toes in life. Just accept it. Shame accepted is our greatest treasure, one of my dear friends, Tabor, says. So I went into having this conversation ready to give the 5 languages of apology. And the 5 languages of apology. So the first one is expressing regret. I'm sorry. Number 2 is accepting responsibility. I was wrong. I made a mistake. Number 3 is making restitution. What could I do to make it up? Number 4 is genuinely repenting. I'll try to not do that again. And number 5 is requesting forgiveness. These are really, really great to have under your belt. In fact, I use them at Hanalei Day Spa as part of our protocol. If we ever make mistakes, to say these 5 languages of apology. So in my head, here's how it went. I am so, so sorry. I made a mistake. I usually don't make mistakes like that. In fact, I can't remember ever doing that. As a way to make it up to you, I would like to give you such and such. Well, this person didn't even let me say that. This person was literally screaming. I had to move the phone away from my ear. And I understand she was angry. I get it. I get being angry. She had every right to be angry. I missed the appointment, But what do we do after it that counts? How gracious are we? How gracious are we? So I started to say what I said. She's like yelling, la, 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 la. And this is an example of toxic anger, by the way. I'm going to paraphrase, and of course, I'm not going to give the person's name because obviously they're hurt and they have something other going on other than me. So she said what she said, and I said, I realize that you're angry, and I'm really sorry, and I'd like to make it up to you. And back into her yelling and screaming again. Well, at this point, I realized, and she's kind of making me wrong. And she said, well, what would you do? What's your, what would you do, with your business if somebody didn't show? And I said, actually, we have a policy, but truth be told, I try to be more all bark and no bite. So I answered her question, and then she still kept yelling and yelling like she didn't hear me, poor girl. I don't know what was going on in her life, but she was very angry, kept yelling. And I said, I'm trying to apologize. Would you listen? No, she wouldn't have anything of it. So, and like literally starting to say things that are abusive and really make me wrong. So what do we do when we're angry sometimes? We want to blame. Sometimes anger is hard to tolerate, or hurt or disappointment is so hard to tolerate, we blame someone else. Blame is a form of displaced anger. And so that's something we really want to watch, even in micro bits. Sometimes I can't find something in the house. I have a microsecond of wanting to blame my husband. He busted me on it the other day, and he's like, you want to blame me, don't you? And I was like, yeah, I do. Well, that's a form of toxic anger even. So here's 2 examples, one of clean anger and one of toxic anger. And if you're just tuning on, go ahead and hear the first part because it's pretty cool. And now I can't take any credit because here's what I put together. 35 years of workshops with Landmark Education, Susan Campbell with Getting Real. I'm a Getting Real coach and an honesty salon facilitator. Brad Blankton's Radical Honesty, and Tabor Shadburn's work, as well as the 5 languages of apology. And my own personal work went behind this first conversation, clean anger. I can take credit for implementing these and having that situation go really well years ago. Now, the other thing I'll say to you is sometimes the magic works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you could give the best apology. Sometimes you could be so squeaky clean. You could be Mrs. Clean. And someone will still dump a whole bunch of shit on your plate. And sometimes you just have to say, hey, I'm not going to take your abuse. Give me a call when you want to have a clean conversation, which is basically what I did to this person today. I realized I had compassion for myself. I made a mistake, but I'm not going to shame myself for making a mistake, nor am I going to be shamed. I was offering a way to make it up to her and all that. So, moral of the story is you can give clean upset, clean anger, and it doesn't always go the way that you want. You could also give clean listening, and it doesn't always go the way you want. And it's just an experiment, and we just do the best we can do. So I want to bring it back around again and say, after hearing these pieces of setting up the conversation, making sure somebody can hear you, and then having a simple statement. You don't want to barrage someone with everything, the list that they've done wrong in their whole life. You just, when you said, fill in the blank, when you did fill in the blank, I felt, fill in the blank. I felt angry. I felt hurt. When you, this is a great example, and I don't have this with my husband, but when you left the toilet seat up, I felt angry. If I've talked to him 100 times about it, I told myself that you don't care about me, that you don't listen to me. And of course, I'm going to get angry. So you want to deliver your anger in a clean way so it can be heard when you're communicating. You don't want to render someone defensive. And you render someone defensive when you're blaming, when you're angry. Now, you might have to work off the charge first. If it's as simple as somebody missing an appointment, a person who doesn't have a backlog of anger might be able to communicate that very clearly. But if you have this backlog of toxic anger, you're just going to kind of emotionally vomit on a person. And we don't want to do that. We want to be heard, right? You want to be heard and understood. And ultimately, we want to have all of our relations go smoothly. Even if we accidentally step on someone's toes, you pull out those 5 languages of apology and you recreate them, but humbly. Humbly. You can't say something like, well, forgive me. Oh, you better forgive me. Come on, you've been angry enough in close relationship. You can't say stuff like that. You have to humbly ask, could you try to forgive me, please? I'll share a story with you. When I first learned and started practicing the 5 languages of apology.
For those of you who know Kauai, they had just put the lifeguard tower over at KA. I am pointing towards the KA from here. It's mirrored. And so what happened was I was going to pick up a friend who was here on vacation and staying with me. Now I no longer have a guest room, so don't get any ideas. So this friend was staying with me and I was going to gather him.
Little did I know I'm going to get experience with using my 5 languages of apology skill. What happened was I looked up at the lifeguard because he's up in this big tower and I said, hey, how you doing? Could I leave my car here for just, 5 minutes tops? It was an area that wasn't really designated for parking, but sometimes, people could pick up somebody and leave their car there for a few minutes. So I heard him say yes, and I went, I gathered my friend, I came back, and he's looking at me. And if you've ever been to Hawaii or you've spent time in Hawaii, or do you know what stink eye means? So he was giving me stink eye from all the way up there, and he's this big guy. I was scared because I swam there every day, sometimes twice a day. I didn't want to have this lifeguard hating on me, and so I looked up at him and I said, what's up? And he goes, puts his hands on his hips, and he says, Why'd you park there? Everybody started to park there and everything got backed up and I started to shake. I was scared. Here's this big guy yelling at me. And I took a breath. I felt my feet on the ground and I thought, now what did I think? Um, I don't remember what I thought, but I started to give him the languages of apology. I said, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I made a mistake. I was wrong. I heard you say, yes, you may park there. I never would have parked there if I heard you say no. And then I skipped to the last one. I don't know why, because was the hardest one for me to say. I took a breath and I said, could you try to forgive me, please? And he shifted on a dime from stink eye, glaring down at me, to, oh, of course. And I said, thank you so much. And I had this beautiful experience of being forgiven. And he had a beautiful experience of forgiving someone. It was a gift all the way around. I made a mistake, but the net result was a gift. So sometimes these things can be a great treasure. Sometimes it can be really challenging. We can't control the outcome out there, but what we can do is do our best and always show up. So my recommendation is first to notice what emotions do you get stuck in? That's why I asked you in the beginning, how many times have you gotten angry? If anger is something predominant, then you may want to enlist some of these practices that I've shared with you today. Sometimes we might have one feeling and then they're stacked. So for instance, sometimes somebody might be sad or feel sad. However, there's another feeling on top of it. Sometimes they might be sad, but then anger, prickly anger on top. So these are things to think about in our approach. What are our common flavors? Our favorite. What's your favorite flavor of emotion? Are you angry? Are you sad? Do you do a victim villain game? That can get really toxic. So somebody makes a mistake and they're apologizing to you, and you're still mad at them. You're making them wrong. What about giving somebody an opportunity? What about giving somebody an opportunity to communicate? Hey, so, just so you know, I felt really angry when that happened. I'm still a little mad about it, but I wanted to talk to you, which is different than just telling somebody off and la, 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 or vilifying them. When we vilify them, we are not in touch with the holy human prototype that they are. When we're making someone else wrong, they're an it. They become an it who has done something to us. We take out all the humanity there, and we're left with villain and victim. Even if I'm not intentionally vilifying that person, if I victimize myself, that makes the other person a what? Yeah. So we might even have little subtle flavors of this. So just check in and see, how's that going for you? Are you in this villain victim loop? That's just kind of painful all the way around. How do we hop off that? Make a simple and humble request. Now, you can't do any of this coming from toxic anger. So So I was just saying, make a humble request, but let's pin that for a sec, shall we? If you have steam coming out your ears, you cannot communicate. You're not ready. Go call a girlfriend. Don't talk to that person that you're angry at. Not yet. You need to work off some of the charge. However, on the other side, if you notice you keep gossiping about somebody, if you find yourself doing that, you need to actually take responsibility and go talk to that person and work it out, reason it out with them. Ask them, hey, would you be willing to listen to me? I'm actually pretty mad. We don't need to talk about it for a big long thing. I'm not going to emotionally like vomit on you or anything. Just could you listen to me about this? I think it might be healing. And then there's another human. There's one human to another. There's a me and a you in that dialogue. And while we're on the subject, if anybody listening to this, if I've ever said or done anything that you felt hurt by, contact me personally. Let's talk about it. I'm willing to listen. I'm not willing to be abused, but I'm willing to listen so that we can have a healing. There's a Hawaiian term for this. It's called ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono, to make right. Because, if I accidentally stepped on your toes and I'm not mindful enough in the moment to say I'm sorry, and you come to me with an opportunity so that I can say I'm sorry, that's going to be healing all the way around. Wouldn't you agree? So as we begin into this new year, I want you to think about what you're bringing into this new year. Think about the burdens, the chips you have on your shoulder. Think about it. How heavy is that? How often do you talk to somebody else about what somebody else has done? What resentments are you harboring and to whom? How many times do you feel victimized or do you vilify someone else? Because if you vilify someone else, you are victimizing yourself. The reverse is true. I talked about how anger is actually, it can be like physical, like a sneeze or a burp. You can't hold that stuff in. You hold it in and it's going to cause problems. The Ayurveda Sutras, one of them I call NSU, non-suppression of natural urges. And they go on to list all these natural urges, from belching to passing gas, that you should not suppress. And guess what's on there? Crying when miserable. It's the same way. It's a body function, just like laughter comes up and out. Anger comes up and out, right? Love in the same way. A belch, gas. What happens if you hold gas in? Have you ever tried to do that? I have, years ago. Oh, I had such cramps in my belly. So think about what happens when we hold our emotions in. We become emotionally constipated. It's true. That was my Jerry Seinfeld delivery. Emotional constipation. Now, I'm not talking about the opposite. Diarrhea. Emotional diarrhea. Yeah. I'm not talking about. What I'm talking about is being clean with our emotions and expressing as a service, as a healing, ho'oponopono to make right, but only when that person is ready, willing, and able to hear. Somebody might not be ready, willing, and able to hear, or you might, if people are constantly defensive around you, there's a common denominator there, and that is this one. So, how do we communicate to render people not defensive? We drop in and be humble. And we ask. We make requests, not demands. We kindly and humbly offer apologies, or kindly and humbly ask if somebody would be willing to listen to us, because it is a service to be heard. And listening, oh, that's so sweet. When you really give somebody good, sweet, juicy empathy, here's how you know that you are hitting that spot. They say something they're upset about. Oh, really felt hurt when you left the toilet seat up. Yeah, I can understand that. I'm so sorry. And then the person responds, maybe with more, yeah. And you've been doing it for like 10 years. It's so frustrating. That's actually a good sign, friend. You gave empathy, you gave good listening, and they opened up and they're telling you. If you give somebody empathy and they come back with more, it's a good sign. Yeah, I hear you. Oh my gosh, that must be awful. Did you just fall in the toilet and touch the dirty, disgusting toilet water with your tush in the middle of the night? Oh my God, that's awful. I'm sorry, honey. I did. It was so gross. I'm so mad at you. So these are the, we can not take ourselves so seriously during these conversations, but don't ever shame or make fun of somebody else. I was making fun of myself. In this way, we can have clear space between me and you, right? There can be no bricks in the wall. You start putting one and then another and another. Sooner or later, you can't even see the person, much less relate with them. So we want to keep things clear, right? Keep that space between in our relationships clean and clear. So think about it. I've asked you some pithy questions. Or don't think about it. It's okay. I'm not attached. But if you want to think about it, these are some pithy questions. If you have a problem with either side of this, then and you want to work on it, here we are. Here I am with some great solutions. So if you have derived value, we practice reciprocity. If you've derived value, leave a little comment, a like, ring the bell on YouTube or on Facebook. So I think that was a good recap. Let's see. We talked about clean anger. I shared with you the story about my friend who's been teaching people from an experience that he had with me, where I gave him squeaky clean anger. And then we gave an example of not so clean or toxic anger. I gave you the example of those two. I also shared with you the 5 languages of apology, which is great. The 5 languages of love is really good too. I get no affiliate points for Sharon Gary Chapman's books, but I like to because they help people. Let's see, what else did I talk about? Really setting up the conversation so you can be heard, and having that be, permission based. Really being respectful of yourself, honoring your emotions and other, and how sometimes you really need to just work that charge off before you talk to someone. And a little red flag, a little bell should go off in your head when you notice you're vilifying someone and victimizing yourself, or blaming, even in a subtle little homeopathic way. So do a self-check here. You're watching me, you're into self-help, do a self-check. Let me know how it goes for you. I love hearing my viewers' responses and hearing your experiences. So thank you for your time today. Thank you for listening. Go ahead and binge watch if you want more and want more what I got. Aloha from Kauai.